Greetings everyone and welcome. My name is Alex with the Climate Science Alliance, and today I'm going to briefly walk you through the pieces of the Climate Science and Pollinators Traveling Trunk. Now this trunk is designed specifically to help your students gain a better understanding of who the pollinators are, their important role in our lives, and how a changing climate and increased human activity will affect them and in turn affect us. As with all of our Climate Kids programming, we utilize hands-on science activities, art, and storytelling to teach about climate science in a solutions-based, positive way. The Climate Science and Pollinators Traveling Trunk is structured to be taught in 4 main parts: Climate Change Primer, the Regional Impacts Module, the Pollinators Module, and the Tribal Perspectives Module. The Climate Change Primer module provides students with an overview of the latest climate science information. If you've already reviewed climate change causes and impacts in your classroom, the Primer module is optional. It includes 3 primary activities. The first is the heat trapping blanket demonstration, where students can have a visual demonstration of greenhouse gases accumulating in our atmosphere and covering the earth like a heat trapping blanket. This is a fun visual that allows students to make the connection that the earth is getting warmer and that this has certain consequences. Another activity that is included in the Climate Change Primer is the greenhouse gas game. This game is to help visualize that the greenhouse gases can trap heat in our atmosphere, and more importantly, that our actions can make a difference. This is done by having students form a large circle, either in the classroom or outside, around a small bucket in the center of the circle. Students in the circle will receive a light card. The heat cards will go in the bin at the center of the circle. You will choose a few volunteers to act as greenhouse gases around the center of the bucket. The greenhouse gases are not able to move in the demonstration. For the first iteration, you will say go and have all the students with these light cards run to the center of the circle to grab a heat card, demonstrating the transference of light to heat. Once they have a heat card, they can be trapped or tagged by a greenhouse gas. The goal, however, is to escape as a heat card back into space or the outside of the circle. At the end of the simulation, discuss with your students what they observed. You will then use the orange cards, or the human activity cards, to add or subtract greenhouse gas molecules and run the simulation again. This is a really great way to visualize the impact of greenhouse gases in our atmosphere and how we can make choices that can reduce them. The last of the activities of the Climate Primer is the carbon cycle demonstration game. This activity allows students to understand how carbon cycles on our planet between the different spheres: the hydrosphere, or water, the lithosphere, or earth, the atmosphere, or air, and the biosphere, or the plants. What's more is that this activity allows students to understand how the Industrial Revolution, or alterations in how we extract and burn fossil fuels, has changed the carbon cycle and causing our climate to change. For this activity, every student will get a white pipe cleaner bracelet, and you will set the 4 spheres around the classroom with an associated rolling dice and set of beads. For the first round, you want to make sure that you have the pre-industrial lithosphere block in place. When you start the simulation, your students will grab a bead from the station they are currently at and then roll the associated dice, telling them where to go and get another bead. Sometimes it'll also tell them to stay right where they are. They'll get back in line and grab a bead from that same station. You'll run this activity for about 10 minutes or until their bracelets fill with approximately 10 to 15 beads, at which point you'll pause the simulation and have your students make some observations. For the second round, you'll switch that pre-industrial lithosphere block with the post-industrial block and explain to your students that humans have learned to remove fossil fuels from the ground more efficiently. You can have them either make predictions on what might happen in the next simulation, or you can just begin. After about another 10 to 15 minutes, you will again stop the simulation and students will be able to make observations of where the carbon is now, looking at their bracelet. That wraps up the Climate Change Primer. The next module, or the Regional Impacts Module, goes from the global approach of the primer to the more local approach. Now, the Regional Impacts Module assesses climate change data taken from the San Diego Ecosystems Assessment. This was done as a part of the 4th California Climate Change Assessment and explores regional climate change impacts to human and natural communities in Southern California. After presenting the results of the ecosystems assessment to your students, you will have them review specific data pieces covering the climate impacts of temperature, precipitation, wildfire, and coastal low clouds and fog, also known as the marine layer. You will divide your students into groups and assign them each a climate impact to dive in. They will review the data and discuss what it means for human and natural communities using the prompts on these regional impacts cards. From here, you can have student groups present their findings to the rest of the class. We recommend getting creative, perhaps have the students create a video or a poster with their findings, and maybe even a public service announcement encouraging others to be a part of the solution. Next, we get to the Pollinators Module, which ties the local impacts of climate change to these animals specifically and our natural ecosystems. In this module, students will first learn about pollinators and their important biological role. This will be done through a few hands-on activities, such as the pollinator observations and a special scavenger hunt. Using the field guides and hand lens provided, you can guide your students on an exploration, either in their classroom or outdoors, to better understand the pollinators all around them. Everything from insects to birds, small mammals, and more. With the Every Party Has a Pollinator worksheet and the Phenology activity book, you will start to explore more in depth the impact of climate change to our pollinators, whether through changes in temperature, precipitation, or other pertinent climate impacts. In turn, these activities will foster connections for students that impacts to pollinators also means impacts to us by way of our food system. In addition to these activities, we've also included a copy on the USB of the Butterfly Lab curriculum, which is a collaboration between the Climate Science Alliance and the Earth's Birthday Project. This curriculum provides a myriad of hands-on activities designed to engage students around climate impacts to butterflies, caterpillars, and other insects specifically. In addition to these hands-on science activities, we've also included several storytelling books to engage students and help them understand threats these animals face, and also some cute little pollinator puppets to inspire them to tell these stories of the pollinators using the puppets. Lastly, we believe it's really important for students to deepen their understanding and appreciation of pollinators by creating artistic representations of what they have learned. Thus, we've included several art examples and encourage you to have students incorporate a solution or action they will take to work towards helping protect pollinators on our planet. The final module, and a mainstay of all Climate Kids chunks, is our Tribal Perspectives module. The Tribal Perspectives portion of this chunk provides cultural resources and curriculum for both tribal and non-tribal educators, and this is a living collection of resources and materials with activities and topics from tribes throughout the southwestern United States and beyond. So we encourage you to check it out. With that, a reminder that each module and trunk includes background information, lesson plans, PowerPoints, activities, posters, and materials that are all referenced and can be found in this curriculum manual. A USB with the PowerPoints, worksheets, storybooks, and art examples is also included in the front pocket. Each module includes next steps, activities, which are designed for teachers to use once the trunk returns, and as it is our hope that the learning will continue, whether on a field trip, in your own backyard, or elsewhere. Thank you again for joining me for this brief overview of the Climate Science and Pollinators Traveling Trunk. I hope it is helpful and supportive for you in your climate education endeavors. I also recommend connecting with us at www.climatekids.org or www.climatesciencealliance.org for ongoing updates and additional resources. Thank you and have a great day.